Hey Tracy.
Hi, how are you?
Good. We're trying to figure out Wi-Fi issues.
Yes.
Oh
Hi, Tracy.
no.
I don't know if I'm fuzzy or not to you.
No, not at all. You guys both look clear. Am I
You're
clear and
clear?
sound okay and all that?
You're,
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Elizabeth, how do I look now? Am I okay? Or
you're still a
still
little
kind of,
fuzzy.
that's crazy.
Hmm. But I
Okay.
can
Well,
hear you fine. There's no drag.
okay. Maybe, yeah, maybe with
I guess I see it now. Just when you move, there's a slight
a
buzz,
slight,
I
okay.
guess. But yeah, no lag in your sound here
Okay.
either.
Okay, good. Well, maybe no matter what happens and you guys can hear me, then we will just keep going.
It looks like one of those
Yeah.
filters, which is kind of
Maybe
weirding out now.
maybe on the Zoom filter, I went a little crazy. I was like, just, kind of get this
Went too
beauty
far.
filter, like a little soft, soften the
Yeah.
wrinkles.
There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
Anyways,
It's so
well,
good to see you,
our,
Tracy. Finally, I've read
yes,
all of your books and I'm such a huge fan. I'm so thrilled that you're with us tonight.
Oh, thank you for having me. Oh, no, I'm looking forward to this. I'm sorry, I have kind of a strange background. I'm actually in a camper van, believe
Oh
it or
boy.
not. Really good internet though, shouldn't be any problem. But I do
That,
have kind of this strange background and dealing with the light outside, so I apologize for that.
no, that sounds
well,
like you're
honestly,
having
that
a
sounds
good
great.
time.
I'm
Okay.
always struggling for the right place. And this is our office. And then during the evening, there are some theater groups that practice in the neighboring offices, and a lot of
Oh,
times they'll do like vocal practices. And I
yes.
walked in
Yeah.
the door tonight, and there was like piano playing and sequin costumes, and I was like, okay, well, hopefully this is gonna go
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. It's never perfect, I
Anyways,
don't
but
think.
maybe I need to get a camper van, and then just nobody would bother. That would be the probably the ultimate, I think,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. It's interesting. First time, so it's been fun. Not going to sell the house and do this full time or anything, but it's fun.
Are you out? Are you just in your driveway? Are you traveling right
No,
now?
no, we're traveling. We're in New Mexico right at the moment. So not too
Oh,
far.
Fun.
But then unfortunately we have to head east from or west again from here. But yeah, so we're on the road.
What part of New Mexico are you right now?
At the moment we're in Los Alamos.
hmm.
Okay.
So yeah. And
You
then from here
visited
we go to Santa
you
Fe.
just oh,
Oh
that's
yeah.
pretty.
Yeah.
Visited Ruidoso and then went
Yeah.
to the I'm forgetting the name of the sands park with all the sand. It's so
Oh,
beautiful down there.
the dunes, the white sands down
Yes,
south,
white sands.
probably. Yes.
So
Yeah.
incredible. It's just
Yeah.
really
It
and
has its own
you know, so
beauty
all the
here.
wild
Yeah.
horses.
Yes.
I love
Yeah.
it's like a best kept secret, I feel like, of
Yeah.
America is New Mexico.
Yeah. Yeah.
So fun.
Definitely.
Well, I guess we'll get officially started.
Okay.
If we have people in the chat, and if you are welcome to introduce yourself and tell us where you're from. The best thing about Fabled Book Club is we get to discuss the beginning, middle, and end. So spoilers abound during this book club. So mostly everybody knows that who comes to our book club, they've read the book, they're prepared. But I always like to say it just in case, because we are not spoilers and we don't want to ruin anybody's experience of the book. But
Perfect.
there's your
Good to
fair
know. Okay. Okay.
for anybody who needs to know. So if you need to X out, you will get this recording about 24 hours later. And then you can listen to it as soon as you finish the book. But we're so excited to dive in with Tracey. Elizabeth and I have lots of questions for her about the book. And if you have any yourself, feel free to drop it in the chat, or you can drop it in the Q&A, and we will do our best to get to it. As we discuss things with her. And if you stick around at the end, we'll be announcing our next book club for next month. So I will let Elizabeth officially introduce Tracey, and we'll talk about the
Yes.
book.
Okay. Again, we're just so thrilled to have Tracy here with us tonight. I've read all of her books. I was actually in County Down last year, and I just kept thinking, oh, this is like the Conleys of County Down. So that was a
Oh,
thrill.
cool.
Yeah, but this is a dream because I absolutely love your books.
Oh,
But
thank
Tracey
you.
Lange was born and raised in New York City. She graduated from the University of New Mexico with a degree in psychology before owning and operating a behavioral healthcare company with her husband for 15 years. She completed the Stanford University online novel writing program and is the author of We Are the Brennans and the Conleys of County Down. She currently lives in Bend, Oregon, and in her trailer, I guess, or camper, with her husband, two sons, and beloved German Shepherd. So, and again, you'll have to excuse me. The pollen is in the air, and I am my voice is fighting the good fight, but I'm a little under the weather tonight. So, but I'm thrilled. I don't think you're going to be contagious. I'm not contagious through Tracey. No worries.
No.
But just for some of us, I read the book, of course, many, many months ago,
Mm.
and several of us have read it, a while back. So can you just kind of give us a brief synopsis of the book to remind us about this fantastic story?
Sure. Thank you so much. Um, so what happened in McCrays basically takes a very close-up look at a marriage that has fallen apart. When the story opens present day, our two main characters have been divorced for a couple of years almost. They're living separate lives in separate coasts. And Kyle, our male protagonist, is called back to their hometown to help his dad, who has suffered a stroke. So he returns back to his kind of rural hometown of Potsdam, New York, which is way, way, way upstate. And he is then back in his ex-wife's orbit. And really that sort of kicks the story off. They both kind of have to navigate being back in this really small town where for many years they kind of shared a life together, and now they're trying to figure out how to do it separately amidst this very small town. So that's the main gist of the story. And it's a dual timeline. If you remember, it dips back into important moments of their past relationship. So we kind of take a look at what brought them together back in the day, and then ultimately what happened to kind of tear them apart.
Such a great story.
It really
Thank you. Thank you.
There so much there many good details I love about this book, and I feel like it's a universal truth that people love to read about people working, and there are like great details about car mechanics and woodworking and hockey playing. And are these all things that personally? Because I was like, if she researched all of these things, I am so impressed, first of all, because I feel like I learned things while I was reading this book.
Yeah, I honestly, I didn't know. I knew very little about all of those things. They were a lot of it, especially the hockey, was a product of the setting. I knew that I wanted a small town, a winter town, lots of snow, place where people kind of have to rely on each other at times. I just felt like that was a perfect backdrop for this story. And I found Potsdam, and then I researched the heck out of that. Happen to know someone in Bend that's from that area and got to pick his brain. And then of course I visited, and I just felt like, oh, it's perfect. And once I landed on Potsdam, I was like, well, that's a hockey town. They do other things, but hockey's huge. So I kind of, so some of it just sort of worked out that way. And I did watch an insane number of YouTube videos of middle schoolers playing hockey. And kind of got to know a lot more about it than I'll probably need to know in the future. But then as I developed characters, Kyle just kind of came to me as a mechanic from the beginning. And I do have a cousin I'm close to, and he's a mechanic, so I could pick his brain. But still, it's not like I've got experience doing that. So all of those things, why it's woodworking, it all took a lot of research as I was building that first draft.
Yeah, impressive.
I was trying
Thank
to
you.
think, with your books, I don't like reading about dysfunctional families per se, but
Uh-oh.
I love your books, and I don't know what it is about them that just I'm so drawn to them. But I'm wondering when I was looking at your bio today with your behavioral health care background, do you feel like that informs your family stories?
Definitely. definitely. I worked in that field for almost 20 years, and worked with teenagers, younger children, families, adults, dealing with all kinds of issues, people from all walks of life, and from across the entire like socioeconomic spectrum, and there definitely were commonalities, and at the end of the day, it was just people dealing with the challenges that we all have in our families. You know, some are more severe than others, obviously, but just I think just being for so long kind of steeped in all of that raw human challenges, and people that were trying so hard to keep their family together and amidst these struggles. So yes, certainly all of that informs my work now. I can't point to any particular character storyline and say, oh, that's based on such a person that I worked with or that we knew, but all of that I think just fuels my characters and stories now.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out what it is about your stories. I think a lot of the dysfunctional family stories are kind of irreverent, but in a way the way you write about them is in a very reverent way, and beautifully told. So I think that is what I love about your books.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, my
Thank
goal
you.
is just, my goal is always just to, and this is what I kind of lights my fire, is getting into each character and hopefully getting that person across so well that even though you disagree with maybe most of their decisions, depending on who we're talking about, and that there's some empathy there and some understanding, you know. So hopefully that plays into what you're talking about too. It, you know, nobody's all good or all bad. You know, we're all just trying to do the best we can.
Exactly.
So I think sometimes people connect with that too.
For sure.
Yeah.
You mentioned in epilogue about Potsdam and that you did right now as well. I would love to hear your process of like choosing a town, and it's a real life town, and does it ever get complicated with real life people in the town? And love to hear your process about that.
Well, the first two books also took place in New York, one in a real town, one in one that I sort of fictionalized because I felt like I had to take a few liberties. It was based on a real place, but for this particular book, again, just knowing the kind of small town feel I was going for, I really wanted to find a specific place to base it on. And my hope was that I wouldn't have to change much and I really could base it on a real place. I just thought that setting was going to be so important. And so there's very little that I changed. I'm sure I made an error or two here or there that someone from Potsdam would say, wait a second, you know. But for the most part, I really tried to stay very true to Potsdam. But I did research other towns, but it had the two it was winter, lots of snow, but also had the two college campuses in it, which to me just kind of lended another really nice element to work with. And so I went with it. It's still a little nerve-wracking. And I did have a couple people reach out and say, well, I picked up your book. I'll see if you got it right. Both those people did come back and say they felt like I captured the Potsdam spirit. And I actually got to do a little interview with North Country Public Radio up there. And so that was lots of fun, you know, but it's a little nerve wracking to put it out there. I'm not from there. I want to make sure I got it as right as possible, but it just felt so perfect for this story. So that's why I went with it.
Well, we're about as far away from Potsdam as you can get in the United States,
I
so we
know.
did a great job.
We wouldn't know.
No.
Right.
Well, your first two books really focus a lot on the sibling relationships, but
Right.
this one, it's much more about a broken marriage. Were there challenges to that kind of a change? Did that feel like a change of direction for you?
It did. Some of the process was similar as far as developing the characters and giving them backstories and kind of figuring out what shaped who they are. So that process was similar, but I definitely it was little emotionally more difficult because I drew on my own experience as a wife and a mom. I've not been through the things that these characters have been through, but to sort of take that journey and sit in that for a while, and that was tough. And also working with just two points of view was a little different. I liked it though. I found it sort of easy to keep the narrative pretty tight, just going back and forth between two people. So that was kind of new and different. But it was a little crazy making certain parts, as you can imagine. And I always joke that if you asked my husband what I was like while writing certain parts of this book, he would tell you that I was a lot crazier than usual, which I think just means much more emotional at the drop of a hat than usual. So that part was difficult, but I also had kind of I had kind of a certainty with these characters that I didn't, maybe it was just because it was the two of them and it was just their personal, relationship. I had a kind of a certainty that I didn't feel with the others early on in the process.
I like that. Casey's character I felt like was so well done because I was telling Elizabeth, like, I think it'd be really easy to get aggravated and frustrated with her behavior. And but I had so much compassion for her and just her slow growth in understanding her own grief. What is that like to write a character like that, where you don't want the reader to get frustrated, even though the reader's like, you've got to not snap out of it, obviously, but you've got to, come to some healing in some way and know what you're doing is not healthy and know that this is not your fault, blah, blah, blah. What's that like to write a character that way?
She was definitely the toughest one for me in this book, because of how she was, this book for me started out wanting to explore divorce, take a look at a marriage that had fallen apart and what happened there. And when I started the first draft, I did not know what broke them up. I didn't know what happened. I knew I would find it along the way. And it was the way this story unfolds to the reader is honestly how it sort of unfolded to me. Once I developed these two people and gave them a backstory, and it just kind of led there. And so it became it very much became a book about how we manage our grief and our emotional pain. And, these two characters handled it differently, and it changed each of them, and then them as a couple. And Casey was very difficult. I read many, many accounts of parents that have dealt with such a tragedy. And again, I know I drew on experience in the mental health field. So I just tried to go step by step with her as far as her reactions and why she was reacting a certain way. And I knew there would be that danger because at some point you just kind of want to shake her. Right. But I think at every moment I just tried to, every step along the way, try to stay very true to who she was and where she was at that moment in time. So I know there are some people that perhaps did get frustrated with her at times, and that's understandable and maybe not a bad thing too, but that's kind of the best way to explain it, is at every point I just trying to kind of check myself about where would she be now, and now that he's back in the town, and depending on what was happening, what would she be going through at this point. But she was a tough one, very complicated.
I get that.
Yeah, I wanted to ask a little bit about your writing process. So you said that you're, instead of a plotter, you're more of a pantser. Would that be correct?
I think somewhere in the middle. I don't outline, and as I just said, there's a lot I don't know about that first draft and what's going to happen when I dive in. But at the same time, I've never been one to just sort of free write. I have to feel pretty good about what I'm working on right now, and I'll have a little idea of what's coming in that first draft. But so yeah, I'm somewhere in the middle, and I if I'm not sure where I'm going, it just all stops until I dive in and figure out what's wrong. Doesn't mean that there's certainly many drafts and revisions. Of course, you don't get it right the first time, but So yeah, I guess I'm somewhere on that spectrum like everybody else.
Well, and just an addendum to that question, a little bit of a spoiler, but did you feel like always that they were going to get back together in the end?
I really wasn't sure. I think I hoped. um, but as I was getting near the end, I knew that it would be important for Kyle to get to a place where he knew that he had done all that he could do, and it really was up to her at that point. Like he kind of had to just be finished trying. He just kept trying to fix it and make things happen, and so I knew he needed to get to that point for his character arc, for himself. So there was a little bit of like, well, how do we get from there to um, to maybe a possibility of them coming back together? And that's where Wyatt came in, and that sort of near the end. And I mean, I think she was close, but she just sort of needed that dose of honesty that Wyatt gave her near the end, and to help kind of push her over the over the hump. So anyway, I hoped it, but I didn't plan it. And I think I do that deliberately in the first draft because I don't want to try to force something. I just really want to get to know the characters and see where it seems like they would go.
You made good choices. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you.
I want to ask a question that Allison asked in the chat was, do you write one timeline at a time or as it appears in the book?
No, that all of them actually. I know this is the only one with a true dual timeline. But the way it came out is the way I wrote it. I knew I wanted that dual timeline there from the beginning. So I kind of got those first chapters done. It seemed like, okay, this is the good time to introduce them, way back when they first connected. And so the way it's written is again, lots of revisions and great feedback from people, my writing group agent and editor, but that's the order it was in from go.
I love the addition of the kids slang. I have two kids, 15-year-old boy. So I was like right there, knowing exactly what they were saying, and actually laughed out loud. I think it was the end when I think Kyle maybe he tries to say drip in the right way, but it's off. And I laugh out loud.
Yeah.
Funny to me. Like I laughed, and my husband, why are you laughing? And I read it. He knew exactly why it was funny. I'm assuming if you have two sons, this is also your vocabulary at home with them. You didn't have to research too hard for the things.
I didn't, but it's hard to get it just right, and
yes,
particularly I had kind of at the time a little more access to our younger son. Our older son was in the military for a little bit. He's out now, but I didn't have as much access to him. So I was picking our younger son's brain, and he would say, well, you don't quite say it like that, Mom. But it was like, well, I also have to get it across to the reader. You're not my target audience, teenage son. Right. So, anyway, I'm glad it came across. But I thought that would just be a fun, very real element, that we deal with as adults, their lingo. Yeah.
And it's always like, as soon as we say it, it's not cool anymore to them. So
oh, exactly. Some of those are way outdated already. Yes.
It goes by fast. I mean, it's hard to keep up in general, but I really enjoyed it as a parent of a teenage boy. For sure.
Good.
Another fun part of the book is the character Star. I love Star. Did you base Star on your own German Shepherd? Can you tell us a little bit about your dog?
Yes, she's very much. We've always had a dog ever since my husband and I got together forever ago. We've always had a dog, but Star was the dog we got when the boys were very young. So she's big, important to our family. And I really need to update my bio because unfortunately Star passed away a few months ago. And I don't think I've had the heart to make, officially change it. But that was very much her personality. She was a wonderful full-bred German Shepherd. So she also was there from early on. And I just thought, what a great, albeit silent, sort of another observer of their relationship. And also I felt like in this book, it would be very important to bring in as many moments of warmth and humor that I could, because it is such heavy parts of the book. And so the hockey team and Star, those were all good opportunities for that. But yeah, she's very much based on our Star.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. We have an interesting question from Chris Grace in the chat. Says, I found your work history so interesting. What led to the pivot from behavioral health to an online novel writing program?
I've always been a voracious reader, but I've always loved to write. My favorite classes in college were creative writing. Unfortunately, at the time, I can't even say I even really considered a writing career, because I thought, well, I can't do that. It just seemed impossible to do that. So I went in a different direction, and I love psychology. I definitely have always been kind of a studier of human nature. And within that work, I did an awful lot of writing. Granted, it wasn't fiction, but I know it helped with my writing skills. But once I was able to, we made a move to Oregon. We were living in Idaho for a long time, and we were able to sell that business we started. So we moved, and it was kind of my opportunity to I figured, if I was going to try to write, I needed to really get serious about it. So I dove in, I treated it like a full-time job. And it didn't take me long to realize I had so much to learn. And then I started researching writing programs. And I came across the Stanford program, which was so perfect. I really didn't need a master's degree. I just wanted to learn more about writing and workshop material, and so it's all about that. So yeah, so I did that 2-year program, and it was fantastic. And that's where I found my writers group, the people I still work with 6-7 years later. They're still really important in my process. So yeah, that's how all that happened.
So cool.
I wanted to know, I just saw that you have sons. I have 2 sons as well. And I felt, again, this is a little bit of this is a spoiler, but in the book, the death of their son, it was just so hard and moving. And how could you sit with that for so long, having sons of your own?
Yeah, that's the part where I'm sure my husband was like, what is going on? um I I'm sure, like every author, you've become so invested with your characters, but I can't say that I've really sort of cried while putting together certain scenes or chapters. And that book did hit me this way, because I don't know how else to do that than to go there, to just sit in that and really, it certainly isn't the same as experiencing it, but to have to just think through the stages of grief and how you would deal with that, and then of course reading many accounts. It was a kind of a dark time, for sure. It was very heavy. I think that what got me through is I felt like I was telling their story, and once I started, I had to see it through, for sure. But it was very hard. And then when my husband actually read the first draft, he was like, "What are you doing? What are you doing to me?" So so yeah, it was tough. It was tough.
I really never think about that as far as like what the author's spouse has to go through when the author's writing a story. I mean, he was probably like ready to be done with this book. I'm assuming it's so much roller coaster, so much grief. So I mean, it's a lot. Definitely.
Yeah, that one
to put on
worked
paper.
differently. Yeah, and that one worked differently for us, because he usually is part of my process from the beginning, probably more than he wants to be sometimes, but I'm constantly running ideas past him. And I have him read sections. He's one of my best editors for dialogue, and he's a big part of the process. But with that book, it was personal enough that I kind of decided I wanted to get the first draft done before he knew anything about it, and which I think worked well for us. And so I finished the first draft, and he actually went on like a 3-week backpacking trip, and I put it on a Kindle, and I said, okay, so read this, and then you can let me know And
Wow.
yeah, I know, and that might have been extra cruel. I didn't mean it, but you go on a backpacking trip and you're already physically worn down, and then at night he would read this, and I guess his friend that went with him was like, I don't know what you wrote, but it's really emotional.
His friend's like, to
So
put it okay.
yeah, yeah. So I didn't plan that. I just thought it'd be a good, he was going to be away and he could read it without me kind of sitting there waiting, like, what do you think? So
Yeah.
anyway, this book worked a little bit differently for us, and it was hard on him too, for sure. He
Mm,
recognized certain little
I can
points that I
imagine.
pulled from our story. Yeah.
Oh. Well, I really, really wanted to ask about the title because I love that from an outsider's perspective, it sounds like gossip, which is kind of where we start, is we don't know anything about them, and then we're asking the same
Right.
question. How'd you choose the title?
That was also there from the beginning, and all of my titles have been, and I always go in knowing that my agent or editor, someone's probably going to say, well, we need to change this. So far it hasn't happened. But I think for me, that was the central question from the beginning, even as the person who wrote it, was what happened here.
Mhm.
So it felt, I don't know if I went with it just because it was going to take me through, and then people responded and everybody. I know there have been titles similar name, similar kind of question, and one, at least one, is sort of a suspense. So I thought someone would say, "Oh, we're going to have to change it," but
What happened to
everyone felt
Nina?
like,
What happened
yeah,
to,
there's at least a couple,
Mm.
and so
and
I
what
thought,
about
well, I,
yeah, there's a couple of them.
yeah, and one is a family name too, and that's a true suspense. So anyway, I assumed I'd have to change it, but in the end,
What
everybody
happened to
said,
the
no,
Bennetts?
that's
What happened?
it. That's it. That's
Those,
it.
got it.
So, same with We Are the Brennans. My first one, I thought, well, granted, We Are the Mulvaneys was a long time ago, but I thought, well, that's probably not going to make the cut. But everybody felt like it was a good fit. So, so yeah, that title was there from the beginning, and I think it was just because that's what I was working to figure out.
You got to
I
have
think
a
it's
good
great.
Irish name in each one of your books. That's the
I
way it
know.
goes from here on out.
I
I
know.
love to looking at all of your books kind of together, and they all fit together. I mean, has anybody ever wanted to take the cover in a different direction or the font or anything like that?
No, I do owe that to my publisher, to Celadon. They have such a great arts team that put that all of those together. They always are kind enough to run it past me and see what I think, but so far I just like, wow, this is perfect. I couldn't have done
Oh,
any
great.
better. So yeah, so we'll see where they go from here, but so far they've been amazing.
Awesome.
You said you're a big reader, and I'm putting you on the spot, but can you tell us some books that you really love, either ones that are lifetime favorites or ones you've just read that you loved and recommend?
Well, I'll tell you real quick, I'm reading now, and I'm probably about almost halfway through. I'm guessing it's new, Dream State by Edward, I think it's Puckner.
Bushner, I think.
Pushner.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, I so far love it. So I think it's great. Oprah picked it for a reason, right?
Yep.
So that's what I'm reading at the moment, and I think it's great. But as far as some all-time favorites, there are always two or three I talk about because they, I'm sure some of it's timing, but they all hit me as books that just had such amazing characters that were well-intentioned, tragically flawed, and there are times you're rooting for them even when maybe you shouldn't, which I think is always interesting. So I always mention I Know This Much Is True by Wally Lamb. That's kind of an all-time favorite.
I just met him.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, he was at Winter Institute. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I read that forever ago, but I was blown away by those characters. And I don't often reread, but I have reread that book, and it's like this thick. So that's one I mentioned. Another one is All the Ugly and Wonderful Things by Bryn Greenwood. That was out, I think it's 2016, 2017. It was a Goodreads favorite, found it a few years ago, and it's kind of controversial. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it at all, but it was definitely a book where you found yourself rooting for characters that probably you shouldn't be, but I just love that idea. So anyway, those are two that have stuck with me, two all-time favorites.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I would love to hear if you are working on something new right now, and if you can share anything about if you are.
Yeah, I am. It's still first draft, but it's moving along. And I guess what I would say, it is newer, so it's hard to pin down too much, but it leans more toward with the kind of Irish adult sibling. Probably if I had to compare, it'd be closest to Brennan's maybe of the three, but very different story and setup. But it's basically three adult siblings and their mom that are present day, but their dad died a long time ago, but there's some questions about how he died. And it's not a murder mystery. That's not my thing, but these questions have sort of stayed with them and kind of haunted them a little bit. And they're at a point where they're beginning to have to kind of face those questions and work together. So I know that's very vague, but in the first draft, you never know what's going to change or
Right.
but
right.
just to give you a taste of it. Yeah.
That sounds
Well, we
great.
can
though.
hardly wait to read it.
I know it. I'm now laughing about that. You're like, both your books, like it's not suspense, but they could sound suspenseful if you read them in a certain tone, or they could do a trailer.
I know.
So it's really funny, but ends up being very, in-depth stories about family and resolution and all that. But it is really funny.
Yeah.
So
I feel like,
excited to read that.
yeah, I feel like any suspense in my stories is more about the characters and what happened and why they made certain decisions. So it's not your typical suspense story. So I always just want to make sure people aren't going in expecting a murder mystery or something. Yeah.
Well, just know we are rooting for you big time in Waco.
Yes.
We sell your books so well, and they're just, all of them have been just absolute quality, beautiful reads. And
thank you.
It's been a dream to get to talk to you, Tracey.
Oh no. Thank you guys so much. Really. I want to get there someday. I really do.
Please do. We would love that. Definitely.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're empty nesters now, so we're having more time to do that. So I will definitely keep in touch.
It's a beautiful thing. That's why we can I can do my Zoom at my house because there's no children running around jumping off.
I know. Yeah.
I'll get there
thank you
someday.
Guys.
Thank you so much, Tracey. We're going to announce our next book club, so feel free to stick around if you need a good read. And I'm going to put it in the chat now, so you can y'all can sign up. This will also go out in the email tomorrow with our full recording, and I'm going to let Elizabeth introduce it. I know she is so excited. It's one of her favorite books this year.
Yes, I'm so excited that we're going to get to talk to Claire Leslie Hall, who wrote Broken Country, which is an absolutely fabulous book. It's got everything that I love in it. It kind of reminds me of an episode of All Creatures Great and Small, but with a little bit of murder and suspense and a trial and a love triangle. It's just got a little bit of everything. So when I read the book back in October, I immediately told Kai, we've got to jump on this and make sure that we get to talk to her. And yes, we're going to be able to talk to her, but it's going to be different. It's going to be at noon on April the 15th because she's going to be joining us from England. So we didn't want to ask her to join us at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. So plan on taking a lunch break and enjoying our conversation and pick up the book today. It'll be absolutely one of my very top favorites of the year. It's just fantastic. So
I'm glad I stuck around for that. It's on my list. All right.
Tracey, you will love this book.
Good. Okay, great.
Got to pick it up.
Great. Will do.
So great.
All right.
Well, thank you guys so much. Thanks again, Tracey. And we'll look forward to seeing everybody next month. Have a good night.
Bye.
Night.